Let's do a little rally car recap and update. Hello my friends, and welcome to Tom's Tinkering Adventures. Today we're going to go over the IS300 Gambler 500 rally car junkyard salvage build, whatever you want to call it. This is my cheap rally car that I built up for a Gambler 500 event, and I've been enjoying driving it around town actually after the event. I didn't do a whole lot of that before. We did all the testing out in the dirt, and hey, it made it back, so what can you say about that? But let's go over a few things on this vehicle and what I'd like to do to improve it. Okay, just from a quick glance, car looks all right. And actually, I got a lot of compliments on the appearance of the car, how it looks, and everyone seemed to really like that. Everyone liked the bed frame roof rack, and that worked perfect. Had no issues. My high-tech mounting system needs a little bit of tightening, but that's about it. Tighten that up. It didn't go anywhere. I need to reconsider how we packed. Put a lot of the camping gear up there. It kind of stunk when we got to where we were going, so we had to take it down. Next time I'll put the camping gear probably in the back, and we'll put tools and spare parts and stuff like that up here, because that's the sort of stuff we're not going to have to access all that often. The quick and cheap mount for the shovel, that worked just fine. I mean, we had to use the shovel once. It took about 1 minute to grab a screwdriver and take that off. Actually, we didn't even take that one off, had another shovel mounted on the other side. The traction boards that my buddy gave me, I made some homemade ones. I gave them to another person on the event, and then my buddy loaned me these. We had them packed up here underneath stuff again, so I think the traction boards are something that may have to come out more often than anything else, especially if we're going to be going into sand. That was the only time that we got stuck, was in sand. I would like to look into doing a limited slip, or possibly finding another third member or differential unit or whatever they call it on this car, and maybe just welding it solid. If we had two-wheel drive, that would be great. Limited slip would be the best, because it would still be okay to drive on the street. When you weld them solid, it's kind of annoying going around corners. Your tires start chirping. Plenty of room in the trunk, plenty of room in the back seat. Passenger comfort was great. None of the body panels fell off. The only major issue we had was the back is lower than the front. Actually, we'll get a measurement and see. I don't know how level we are here. On this side it actually looks high, on that side it looks low, but this is the side that bottomed out a lot. I don't know how you can see that. We created a new tread pattern here from the fender cutting into there. Partway on the event, a person we were driving with had a grinder. We took off the fender flares here out the fender wells, and they cut about another inch out, and I think we need to cut more and maybe do some hammer massaging in there. We'll figure all that out. This side bottomed out as well, but not quite as much, so I need to look into that, what we can do to get a little more lift. See, this side it looks like it might be lower. I'll measure at the bottom of the car there and see. But the front, I don't think we ever felt that bottom out. The front seemed really good. It still is touching a little bit at full lock turn. You can see it cuts that a little bit, I think, inside of there. We could try heating that up with a torch and beating it, or could try cutting some of that out. What I'd really like to do is get rid of some of this spacer. I don't care for having the wheels out that much, but the brakes is the problem. I think I could go in maybe about half a centimeter, which isn't very much. 5 millimeters, what is that, a quarter of an inch? So it would take a half of an inch off of the track on the front. I may look into seeing if there's any other Toyota style brakes that will fit on here that are smaller for the front. I don't really need all that much braking for what I'm using this for. It's not a track day car, so if I could get a smaller diameter rotor off of something that runs smaller rims maybe, and a caliper, then I could shove these wheels in more. I would like that a lot. I just don't like the look of them sticking out so wide. The backs seem fine. I like where they're at. The fronts, I'd like to get them in about an inch on each side. Well, my son recently upgraded the suspension on his Tacoma, so he gave me his front struts and springs, and I was thinking I may be able to adapt these over to work on the rear of the car. Now, the spring is ridiculously larger, not only in diameter but in length. I was thinking I could maybe put that spring in there, but it's way too long. It's pretty substantially larger as well. I could maybe cut it down. I don't know how legit that would be, and stick it in there. If I put this thing all the way low, I don't know, I'd have to cut, looks like about 2 coils off of it. So that's an option maybe down the road to think about trying that. I also thought about putting this strut portion and using that shock, but you can see where the I don't know what they call that section where the coil sits on it. It's way too far down. So if I stick this top hat or whatever they call it on here, yeah, it's not going to work without some serious modifications, which I don't really want to cut that up and do that. I have no idea if the top hat for the Tacoma will come anywhere close to lining up. I think I have another set of these from another friend. He took off a 4Runner, so I can see if he has the top hats with his. I can see if it even comes close, if I can modify it to work. You know, it's a possibility, but like I said, those are pretty heavy duty looking. In the meantime, when I was messing around with this, I took this top section off of here, and I took out some spacers. So I took out about, I don't know, whatever that is, about a ½ an inch of spacers, almost an inch. So now I think I'll have a little bit more preload on here. I don't know if that's going to help or not, but maybe it'll prevent us from bottoming out a little bit. So I'm going to crank this all the way back up, put this one back on. That's on the passenger side. For some reason the driver's side seemed to be bottoming out the most. I have no idea. These coilovers, they look like they're not that old, but maybe they're worn out, maybe they're light duty, I don't know. These are more for lowering than for raising a car anyway. So I think that's what I'm going to go with for now, is I'll take out the spacers internally here. It's going to give a little bit more push down on the spring, so when I crank it up. Is it the right way? No. Is it the way that we're doing it? Yes. Alright, we got her back installed here with the spacers removed. If this doesn't do it, I think our next step is going to be do a subframe drop. I know we got one bolt there, there's one under here, I don't know how many more hold this whole rear subframe in, but the idea is to drop all the rear suspension and differential, and probably build a little polyurethane spacer out of that cutting board again maybe, and longer bolts, and drop this thing down an inch, which will move all the suspension down, the body up. It's like a body lift, but suspension drop, same. Okay, the car actually performed pretty good, but I realized something when I removed these spacers. This one here has this little insert piece, and the only thing that keeps this whole top hat up here is this little snap ring, hog ring, whatever you want to call it, that goes into this little groove. And since I didn't have this on there, which when you put it on, you can see it goes not just on top of it, but it goes over it, so that thing can't slip off. Well, I hit a few bumps, everything was fine, and then I started to hear some shaking from the passenger side. It seemed to still be performing okay, but what had happened was this thing, which is just slightly bigger than the diameter of this, had slid over that, pushed it down, and push this whole thing down. So rendered everything pretty much useless. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to modify this a little bit, I think. And I'll still be able to get a little bit of lift out of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chuck this up into a bolt and a nut. I'm going to take it over to my grinder. I'm going to grind it down around the outside using my little redneck lathe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chuck this in, take it to the grinding wheel, turn it on the grinding wheel until this is smaller diameter than the inside of this. So then it'll fit inside of there, and drop it down in there a little bit. And then I'll probably also going to grind a little bit off of the face of this, cut that down a little bit. So I'm not going to gain as much as I thought I had coming into this, but I'll gain something. So it was a lot better going over the bumps and stuff. But let me try this out and we'll see how it looks. We put her back together, stock, everything like it was before, and I have a set of heavier springs on order. So when those come in, I'm going to pull the shocks off the back, the coilovers, replace the springs, and we'll see how that feels instead of doing all these half-ass measures. I talked to someone else, actually I found someone on a IS300 group who did a similar setup. He actually went quite a bit more hardcore. He said he put 3 inches of spacers up in here. And I don't really like that idea. I mean, obviously you're gonna get a bit more down force pushing everything down, but you only have a certain amount of limit that the whole suspension can droop anyway. And just getting this spring coilover shock set up in here with 1 inch spacer, I'm already pushing pretty heavy down on the lower control arm. So I can't imagine how you jammed a 3 inch spacer in there. I think I could possibly get another inch of spacer in there, but that seems like an awful lot. Now, if I was gonna add another inch spacer, then I would definitely do the subframe drop. But our biggest problem is not so much that I have a lack of ground clearance or anything like that. It was our bottoming out and cutting into the tire right here. So heavier springs are going to help, and then also, you know, cutting if we need to. Don't really want or need to cut anymore. I have plenty of travel space there. This isn't a heavy-duty off-road rig. It just has to be able to not bottom out. So a couple days, hopefully springs show up. I did some research, and these coilovers are made by a company called Tein, T-E-I-N, and they offer different spring rates. I can't remember what this one is offhand, but I remember I looked it up. And then I found these QA1s. I think these are 300, maybe 350, and these are 450s. So they make aftermarket Tein ones, but they're not available. I tried ordering them from several different places, no longer available. Now this coil is kind of an odd size. Like the length is normal, and this side here is a pretty normal size, but it tapers down smaller at this end. Now these are about 2 or 3 millimeters smaller, and it doesn't quite seat into here. So in true cheap and sloppy fashion, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a millimeter out around here a little bit and see if we can get them to fit. I only bought one because I wasn't sure that it would fit, and also this was a blemished one. It has a scratch on it or something. I didn't even see a scratch, but they sold it as a blemish. Maybe it's because of this. I don't know. Someone bought it and returned it, whatever. So I got it considerably cheaper than whatever they were selling for. If it was $80, I got it for $40 or whatever. I don't remember exactly. It's been a minute since I was working on this because I wasn't sure what direction to go. But anyway, I'm going to get my die grinder and I'm going to try to sand out a little bit here to see if we can make it fit here. And then we'll put it back on the car. And obviously I'll have one spring stronger than the other, but I just want to see that it works and see that it doesn't ride like a complete and total dump truck or something like that. Really just trying to keep those wheels out of the fenders. And once I get this to work, notice I said, did I say if? I should have said when. When I get this to work, I'm also going to trim the fenders a little bit more or hammer them over or something to keep them from cutting the tire. Alright, we got her mounted up in here. I just need to make sure I have this thing aligned properly, then tighten this up, and then we will take the car for a test drive and see what it feels like. It might be odd because it's just going to be on, I'll put it on the passenger side. I think that's the one that seemed to be cutting into the tire the most for some reason. Okay, it's not very scientific here, but we'll go from the knobby there. We've got 5.5 inches to right there on the flare, and over here we've got about a little bit over 4.5. So we got a little bit less sag. Let's take her for a spin. I run down this street almost every day. It's got some pretty bad bumps and potholes and stuff. Try to hit them there with the right rear wheel. So far the ride doesn't feel bad, doesn't feel unusual, and yeah, I'm hitting with the right wheel as much as I can. Sorry for the terrible camera work. But it feels good. It took me maybe 30 minutes. Oh, here we go. We'll hit that with that side. Yeah, it took me maybe 30 minutes or so with the tools that I had to take care of that spring to get it to fit. So not too bad. If I went out and bought a carbide bit or something, it probably would be better. But the ride doesn't seem to be compromised, in my opinion. So let's take it back home and wrap it up. So I funded this car mostly by selling stuff I have laying around here on eBay, old motorcycle parts and things like that. And now I got to buy myself another spring, and I think I'm going to do a little bit different wheel spacers. I did some measuring. I know I can take about 10 to 15 millimeters out of the rear wheel spacers, so hopefully I can do the same on the front. It kind of looks cool with the wide track on it, but I'm sure it's hard on all the suspension components, and you know, it also the front wheels rub when I turn, so if I can take a couple millimeters even out of the front, 5 to 10, it'll make it a little bit better. So on the list for further improvements is new wheel spacers, front and back. Of course, get the second spring for the back, and then we are also going to get a limited slip rear differential. So I need to get some things up for sale on eBay, get some more money in my account, start buying some items, and of course those of you out there supporting me, that helps as well. That pays for beer and gas money so we can take this car out and have some adventures. And there are more adventures planned with it. In fact, I had it out a couple weekends ago just for overnighter. Had a good time, and we'll keep taking it out, keep enjoying it, keep thrashing it a bit, and hey, it's a lot of fun, more fun than I would have anticipated. All right, if you are enjoying my videos, please give me a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and if you're not already a subscriber, please consider doing so. It's absolutely free, my favorite price. Thank you very much for watching. Get out there and find your adventure. Adios.